The air in the Isdal Valley is heavy, trapped between jagged peaks that locals call the Death Valley. In November 1970, a hiker navigating the scree stumbled upon a scene that defied all natural logic. Hidden among the rocks lay the charred remains of a woman, positioned with a chilling, ritualistic precision. The fire had consumed the front of her body, but the surrounding vegetation was bizarrely untouched. This was not a tragic misstep in the wilderness. It was a carefully constructed tableau. The initial sweep of the rocky enclave revealed an unsettling void of personal effects. Scattered around her were an umbrella, a pair of rubber boots, a half-empty bottle of liqueur, and a silver spoon with a filed-down monogram. But the most terrifying detail was what was missing. Every identifying mark on her clothing had been meticulously severed. The burned clothing labels were not an accident of the fire. They were a deliberate surgical excision designed to erase her from the world. This level of methodical destruction speaks to a specific kind of mind. It is the hallmark of professional counterintelligence, an orchestrated effort to sever the victim from her history. Whoever she was, she or someone else had spent hours with a razor blade, ensuring that no brand, no tailor, and no country of origin could be traced. The red thread of her identity had been cut, leaving investigators staring into an intentional, terrifying vacuum. The cold steel of the autopsy table provided the first concrete contradictions to the initial theory of suicide. The toxicology report revealed a lethal concentration of phenobarbital in her blood, alongside significant carbon monoxide poisoning. She had swallowed dozens of sleeping pills, yet she was alive when the fire started. Soot in her lungs proved she was breathing as the flames engulfed her. The phenobarbital suggested incapacitation, painting a grim picture of a woman rendered helpless before the inferno was ignited. Norwegian authorities cast a wide net, desperate for a missing persons report that matched her dental work or physical description. The response was absolute silence. No frantic family members called. No employers reported an absent worker. The woman in the valley existed entirely outside the system, a ghost who had walked the streets of Bergen without leaving a single identifiable footprint. The investigation was suffocating under the weight of her anonymity. A break materialized miles away from the scorched earth, inside the sterile confines of the Bergen railway station. 2 unclaimed suitcases were found in a left luggage locker. The police forced the locks, hoping for a name, a diary, or a simple photograph. Instead, they opened a Pandora's box of deception. The luggage contained high-quality clothing, non-prescription glasses, a stash of West German and Norwegian currency, and a cryptic black notepad. The true scale of the operation became undeniable when investigators pulled multiple fake passports from the hidden linings of the bags. She had moved across European borders like a phantom, utilizing at least 8 distinct identities. Fenella Lorck, Genevieve Lancier, Elizabeth Lienhauers. Each name was a meticulously crafted fiction, supported by forged documents and subtle alterations in her appearance. The suitcases contained an arsenal of wigs and non-prescription eyewear, the essential toolkit of a woman perpetually on the run. Tracking her movements through hotel registries revealed a life defined by intense paranoia. She constantly changed rooms, demanded balconies, and rearranged furniture to monitor the doors. She spoke broken English, fluent German, and fragments of French, shifting her accent as easily as she changed her hair. This was a life lived entirely in the shadows, characterized by hypervigilance. She was either hunting someone across the continent, or she was being hunted. The black notepad offered the only map of her labyrinthine existence. It was filled with columns of seemingly random numbers and letters. Military cryptographers were brought in to break the cipher, eventually revealing a meticulously coded diary of her travels. The codes corresponded to dates and train routes across Paris, Hamburg, and Oslo, yet even deciphered, the ledger offered no motive. It was a schedule of a ghost, moving with purpose toward an unknown objective, set against the paranoid backdrop of Cold War Europe. The prevailing theory naturally drifted toward espionage. The proximity of her travels to classified Norwegian military trials fueled rumors of a Soviet spy ring, but international intelligence agencies offered no confirmation. The KGB, the Stasi, and the CIA remained silent. Without a confirmed nationality or a proven handler, the espionage theory became a convenient narrative to explain the inexplicable, and the trail rapidly went cold. Decades slipped by, and the Isdal Woman transitioned from an active case file into a dark, enduring legend. Her jawbone was buried in an unmarked grave, the zinc coffin sealed just as tightly as the secrets she carried. The burned labels and the cryptic notepad became artifacts of a bygone era. The perfect erasure seemed to have succeeded, but the architects of her death could not have anticipated the relentless evolution of science. Deep within the archives of the Haukeland University Hospital, a microscopic fragment of the truth had been preserved. Pathologists in 1970 had retained tissue samples and organs, locking them away in paraffin wax. More than 40 years later, investigators retrieved these forgotten biological vaults. The cold, sterile environment of the modern forensic lab was about to shatter the silence of the valley. The evidence that had been invisible to the naked eye was finally ready to speak. Scientists extracted her teeth and subjected the enamel to advanced isotope analysis. By measuring the chemical signatures locked inside the dental tissue, they reconstructed the water she drank and the food she ate as a child. The results were startlingly precise. The chemical markers pointed directly to a childhood spent in continental Europe, near the shifting borders of Germany and France. The ghost finally had a geographic origin point, a place where her story began before the erasure. This geographic timeline placed her birth in the turbulent decades before the fire, meaning her formative years were forged in a fractured Europe. Her early life would have been defined by displaced populations and the constant threat of discovery. This historical context reframed the psychological profile entirely. The hypervigilance, the multiple fake passports, and the desperate need to obscure her identity might not have been the tools of a professional spy, but the learned survival mechanisms of a woman who had spent a lifetime running. The final definitive strike against the mystery came through forensic DNA genealogy. By extracting a complete genetic profile from the preserved tissue, investigators bypassed the burned labels and the forged documents entirely. They uploaded her genetic blueprint into global databases, searching for shared chromosomal segments among millions of users. The science of genealogy, initially designed to connect distant cousins, was weaponized to hunt down the true identity of a woman who had fought so hard to remain hidden. The process was agonizingly slow, a digital dragnet sifting through terabytes of genetic code. Investigators mapped out sprawling family trees, tracing lineages back to early 20th century Europe. Every shared centimorgan narrowed the search radius. They eliminated branches, followed maternal lines, and constructed a web of distant relatives who had no idea they were connected to Norway's most infamous unsolved mystery. The genetic net was closing in on the specific family that had lost a daughter to the shadows. As the genetic connections solidified, the abstract profile materialized into a specific, breathing human being. The DNA pointed to a family lineage deeply rooted in European history, a family whose branches had been scattered by the conflicts of the 20th century. The pieces of the puzzle began to lock together: the flight across borders, the linguistic fluency, the profound paranoia. The evidence suggested a woman who had navigated a continent of shadows, only to meet a fiery end in a desolate Norwegian valley. The singular, overlooked red thread was the very biology she could not burn away. The perpetrators had focused on the external markers of identity. They severed the tags, forged the paperwork, and filed down the silver spoon. They believed that by destroying the physical record they could erase the person, but the true record was written in the marrow and the teeth. The forensic evidence proved that while you can burn a name, you cannot incinerate the fundamental code of human existence. The Isdal Woman is no longer just a cipher in a black notepad or a collection of burned garments. Through the relentless application of modern science, the veil of anonymity that covered her for half a century has been pierced. The forensic evidence finally identified the biological reality of the woman who died in the scree. Her story remains a chilling testament to the length some will go to hide the truth and the absolute certainty that the truth eventually will be found.